Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers and we are continuing on in the Survival Series 2. We have gotten our large-scale miner in operation here, as you can see here. So this is actually the spectator cam that I have sitting out in the front, kind of on the side here. And I'm floating back and forth because we are rapidly approaching the limits of our cargo containers. So definitely do not want to do that. In fact, what I might go ahead and do here is push 7, which will stop us for a moment here. And in fact, we could just back up a tiny little bit, turn our drills off for a moment, and then we have cargo mass, which we should see going down very slowly, but going down. And in fact it is. So going back out to the spectator cam here. So we are mining through the center of this. It's a 250 meter asteroid. So as you can see, we have pretty much all the different substances represented here. In layers, we have iron on the very outside, or rather stone on the very outside, and then iron, ice. We go to uranium, then to silicon, nickel, magnesium is the next, then cobalt, silver, gold, and platinum in the very center. And the reason I did gold and platinum in the very center is because you really don't use that much of those. So this is actually almost an obscene amount of both of those. You will never ever use that amount. Now, how did this creation come about? There's a way that you can actually punch in commands, or you could punch in commands on the mid-spaces admin scripts and actually create asteroids. And so this was a creation which I actually saved, and then I can now paste it in the world if I need to. So it's a standard, voxel setup. It's the VX2 format file that you can actually pull out and then paste it into your world as you see fit. Alright, so back to F6 here. We'll see where we're at. Still got a whole lot there, but we are going down. So we are off of that insane 96% use. So we have all the platinum transmitted out. We don't have any scrap. So if we were to actually look at some of the inventories here, go ahead and go into the teleporter just to see what it's doing. So it looks like it's just transmitting gold. Just AU. Oh, there we go. Couple things. So transmitting a spattering, whatever it can get a hold of. Cobalt. The only other thing that I could do here locally, and I've actually considered that, is the possibility of putting in a Kenty Mega Mini refinery. And the reason why I would kind of like to do that is because given a miner this size, the sheer amount of materials that you're pulling in any given second is guaranteed to fill up your cargo containers. Here's a miner that for a small asteroid is actually going to just pulverize it, with one pass through. Any like a 64 meter asteroid is just going to be gone. It's just going to totally devastate it. And you're pulling in all of that material, and ultimately you have to store it somewhere. And so even with the cargo teleporter here in operation, you can see this is only going to deal with 46,000, almost 47,000 liters at a time. So, I have 18 million liters available. So we are, clearly a lot of storage capability here, but the sheer amount that the drills can actually pull in at any given time is pretty significant. So one of the things I want to do here, I'm going to go ahead and do inventory again. I'm going to do my gas generators. So generators, I want to find the ice wherever it happens to be, and actually fill up my gas generators. And the reason I want to fill up the gas generators is I'm going to go ahead and transmit the ice across as well. So we're going to turn off that particular blacklist. Now that I have all these guys full, ideally would be to come up with a mechanism where the ice storage, so I actually have a fuel ice container where the gas generators and the reactors, reactor, it might be just a single reactor, is in an isolated conveyor system. And it was a little difficult to do in this particular thing because I had a dimension in mind, and everything was static. So everything, the reactor stacked in, reactor is a 3x3x3, containers are 3x3x3, hydrogen tanks 3x3x3, so you just stack them all together, so they're all interconnected. So there's no way to isolate any single one of them. But in this case, because we are using ice as our main propulsion, then it's kind of the challenge of what are we going to do in terms of storage. Because obviously if you run out, so I'm mining and I run out of everything, I've only got these 4 tanks for hydrogen. So what happens? So having a way to actually isolate ice would be a good thing. In this case, teleport, we're going to go ahead and remove the block on the ice. So remove that one, and then it will be able to transmit that out as well. All right, so we're going again here. I'm going to go ahead and light the drills off, light off my my mechanism, and then we'll do some watching here again. So again, the spectator cam. So we have broken through the center. It didn't quite go right through the center here, but certainly enough. So we got a lot of silver coming in here. Back into, let me see, I think it was cobalt was the next one in, and then magnesium again. So I'm skirting the edge of the cobalt, the edge of the cobalt here. And ultimately, the goal is just to come out the other side. And then we will now have, pretty much mined, I think, probably all the material that we will ever need. But of course, we've kind of gotten it in somewhat of a pirated sort of a way, because after all, we have this one asteroid that's sitting right here conveniently next to our space station, and also conveniently has all the different ores that we might need. So rather than traveling around and actually finding all these different ores, we actually conveniently have it right here. So the good news is, so far I have not had any of the little slivers that that were causing me some problems. So it looks like all of the cameras are still there. Yep. Yep. So all the cameras and all the spotlights are still there. So one of the things that was happening before was the drills were actually just narrow enough that they could leave these slivers, and it looks like that is not the case anymore. It looks like they have actually expanded just a little bit, which I'm glad to see. So we're now into the cobalt and the magnesium. So let's jump back into F6 here. We'll see where we're at. We're at 64% as to our cargo usage. You can see all the different numbers that we have here as far as what is currently on board. Now, of course, as we transmit that out, and it all goes away. So the generators are up there. They're working really well. So they're maintaining our hydrogen use, which right now is just those two small thrusters that are keeping us moving forward. Now the only thing that I really don't know, and this may be something worth playing with, is is the speed at which this thing is moving forward. Is this a problem, or does it work well? And usually I like to see around 1/3 of a meter, because, you know, after all, we're moving through things a little quicker. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is bring up, there's my number 4. I have the stuff on the screen here that I can see. So I'm going to, that was a decrease, sorry. We're going to increase just slightly, which will put me up to 18. Increase one more, which puts me up to 19, and then, so there's 1/5 of a meter, and we're rolling pretty well. Again, the thing that I don't want is for those little slivers to show up and cause some problems, and I don't know at what speed such a thing will happen. So there's 2, 3, and 5. So there's 1/4 of a meter, and I'm wondering if that is plenty sufficient enough for everything. Kind of want to say that's too fast, but little hiccup there. I think I like the 1/5 of a meter a little better. into the uranium again. Oh, there's the side. So we're really not that far away. Alright, back to the F6 because I want to see where we're at. Oh yeah, we will go ahead and turn off the propulsion. I'm gonna back off just a hair from the drills and then turn the drills off, and we will let our cargo inventory settle down just a little bit. Definitely a lot like watching grass grow. Once these things fill up, they damn, there's a lot. So inventory, we'll go ahead and just for fun look at our teleporter. And for some reason using wanting to use the cockpit as a storage media, which is probably a function of there's a sorter in the front that pulls everything out of the drills. So this thing is slowly doing what it needs to do. All right, still 95%. Oh, I wonder if the drills. There's a thought. Inventory. say, do I have a sorter in the front? Maybe I don't actually have a sorter in the front. And I just have... So I was wondering why this is taking so long to come down off the top, and I was thinking, okay, if we're storing... if we're storing in the drills... Nope, none of the drills have anything in them. It's even using the connectors to stuff materials. All right. So the good news is we're coming down slowly, but coming down. All the gas generators picked up, which is good. So again, ideally would be to have some way to actually isolate both uranium ingots and ice. Which would then, we could store some ice specifically for the oxygen generators, or rather the gas generators. Now for the reactor, it wouldn't be that hard because this doesn't have mining, or rather refining capability as of this moment. So, you know, just blocking uranium ingots like I did is fine and dandy for the reactor. But ice is where things really kind of come into play. You know, right now when I'm sitting at idle and there's only that, you know, kind of trace elements going out, not a big deal. But eventually, when, for instance, if you're maneuvering or headed back, or you know, to or from you know, your base or something like that, then this is actually going to really start taxing those hydrogen tanks, and you may, you know, just basically suck all the ice down to nothing, and then all you have left is what's in your hydrogen tanks, which may or may not get you back to your base. So having a reserve of ice specifically for the generators, I think would be a really good thing. And that was a little bit of an oversight on my part when I built this. I didn't really get into, you know, the extravagant design. It was all the very basic, you know, keeping it absolutely vanilla, absolutely simple concept. And you know, I mean, it worked out reasonably well, but there's still, you know, some of these limitations that you know, you think about when you actually start using something in a, you know, in a more industrialized environment, then you start realizing, oops, I probably should have planned for that. And because of the way the oxygen generators are plumbed in, I don't think there's really a way for me to change that without really taking that whole center. There's all the tanks, you know, there's 8 generators there. So I would really have to, there actually in the space of one of, so it's a 3x3 grid, right? For every you know, reactor, container, hydrogen tank, you know, it's a 3x3 by 3. And so I just built the gas generation portions to basically fill that space. So it was 8 gas generators, and I don't remember what I had down the middle, and then probably a bunch of conveyor junctions on one end that connected them all together, and connected them all into the system. So really the challenge here is to figure out how to keep some of that ice, and this is future miner theory, right? How to have the isolation where you can have those reactors as well as your generators, and still maintain some storage, so you have the materials you need to traverse much greater distances. So it's definitely going to be a challenge to overcome as I build more and more. On the flip side is the small miner that we haven't really demonstrated yet. Really does do an awful lot, and while it can't clear an area quite like this one in a single pass, it actually does operate much faster. So there's one of the things that is an issue. It definitely clears a much smaller swath. I think it's like 60 or 70 meters across, but it's also like 80, 100 meters deep. So it clears a lot of material very quickly. Obviously much more maneuverable than this thing is. Alright, I think we're ready to start up here, so we're going to light the drills off. We're going to go ahead and light off our slow mover, and we're going to go ahead and have a look here at back to the F8. So we're starting, as you can see in the top up here, you're starting to see we're into the ice again. So on the other side of the ice is our iron, and then finally our stone, and we're out. So now that we're seeing ice, oops. There's our iron at the bottom. Finally into the stone there, and probably, so all these are the same width. I think they're 10 meters or 12 meters or something like that for all the different layers. So once we actually break out, which this corner is going to be the one to break out first, we'll shift to being outside. Should happen in just a second or two here. There we go. There's the hole. It's kind of interesting that to watch a vessel kind of eat its way out. There's the top corner coming out. Bottom corner. Finally the top corner. Alright. At last, it is free. So F6 back to get into the cab here. Actually turn off the thruster and then work our way out. F8 to see we have made it all the way out. V again, just to work our way through. Actually, I think I should have gone this way. So we can either go back through the center of this thing here, or so we can actually turn our drills off. Sideways, and then of course our station there in the distance. So I think what we'll do is we're going to exit out of this. This is going to continue to transmit, so we're at 62%, 61% now. We're going to go over and get the other miner and demonstrate how it does what it does. So this is, like I said, nothing close to being vanilla at all. So it's got a Kenti overpowered drill on the front. We have obviously hydrogen thrust up, down, back, sideways, forwards. The couple things that we do not have here is these two reactors powered, so that may or may not be a thing. Okay, so for the interim here, we're going to go ahead and turn off the transmitter, and the reason I'm going to turn off the transmitter is mostly because the other one is doing what it's doing. So I don't really want to have both of them transmitting simultaneously. Interestingly enough, I don't have, yeah, okay, gyro control. There we go. So I've got this great big huge hole over here. So I'm actually going to thrust a little bit sideways, maybe not quite that much, and maybe we'll go right through the top here. Alright, so turn the drill on here and rock and roll. So what I'm going to do here is stop right when we see the first dent into the stone here, and then what I want to do is, okay, so there we go. what I want to do here is do the V, and you can actually see the distance in front of this little guy as he's cutting through. So obviously we're not nearly the diameter or radius that the other miner can do, but we're definitely moving a lot. So here we go. There's our iron. Ice already. Uranium. To the nickel. Magnesium. Cobalt. That should be silver. And gold. We may be too high for the platinum. Magnesium, or sorry, uranium again. Here's the ice again, and then stone, and out the other side. So you can see gyro's definitely not working very well here. Ideally would be move the antenna to there. We're going to move the connector. Actually, I think we're going to do toggle on off like I normally do, and then we'll go to the groups and gyro, and we're going to, let's separate those out a little bit. We want to decrease power and increase power. So increase power. So we're at 50%. I'm gonna go up to 75%. So you can kind of see the hole it did. So obviously not nearly as large, but considering we got through there in about a minute versus the other, the other miner that actually took the better part of an episode to get through the whole thing. So we're definitely there's some advantages to this little guy. Yes, he's taking a quarter, of the radius at a time, but so one on. ideally would be to set up something similar on this miner that would be that thrust override thruster that would let me you know, kind of be semi-automatic. So again, looping back through here and, you know, almost being back out the other side in, you know, a minute. So definitely demonstrating that this is working fairly well. Now the only difference is one drill versus, you know, 300 drills. The amount of material that it takes in is quite a bit different. So I don't know how the game actually calculates it. Clearly not in terms of area. So, you know, apparently it's and you're seeing that right here on the screen, the ingot summary. You know, the 25K, 204K of you know, and granted, this is refined. It's pulling it all through the refineries and then dumping it into the main cargo containers. But you know, it is I think pretty significant in the differential between the mining. That you know, here's one drill that's pulling in X amount versus how the other machine is pulling it all in. So. In this case, I'm kind of aiming for the platinum in here to get the rest of the platinum. There's the silver, the gold, and there's the platinum. They're on the left side. Gold, silver, there's cobalt again. Magnesium, nickel. Uranium. The ice. And iron, and then back to stone. And out the other side. So overall, this little guy, very maneuverable, great on economy, but doesn't take in nearly the amount that we would otherwise be able to take in using one of the large-scale drill ships. So, having said that, I guess let's we'll go back over to our station here. Go ahead and put this in, and I think just because we will go ahead and dismantle this to use a little bit more vanilla mechanism here. Zoomed way out. Alright, and we'll climb out of here and select number 1, grab our dismantle color, get close in here, and dismantle everything. The only thing that that I haven't done, I haven't used the. There was beam drills, and I haven't used those for quite a while. And what I'm thinking is that I will go ahead and build a drill ship based on the beam drills. And what I was thinking is that might be an interesting way to do some creative mining and figure out exactly how those guys work now. So, well, I guess I do want to be close. We will use, I guess you need to find beam. There's the beam drill and the turret, and the question is whether we're going to use the turret or whether we're just going to build the beam drill as it is. So there's some interesting thoughts on different philosophies that that we may be able to use. All right, so I'm gonna flip this kind of down like this, and maybe I'll go ahead and align this onto the. There we go. So this is up. I'm gonna go ahead and do this down. All right, flip. Okay, now here's the interesting thing about this is a 5x5. Wow, that built that really quickly. Two. 3, 4, and 5. And my thought process here is I'm going to actually offset these. Is this really 5 or is this 3? It's a 3. Alright, so at least I think it's a 3. So my thoughts are, and we're going to do this one more time. So here are my thoughts, and those built really, really quickly. So my thoughts are, if we kind of come down here a little bit, then this offset is now, this guy is going to, so if we consider this as moving in a direction such as this is the back, this is the front, and we're moving forward, then this beam drill is going to start in, then this one's going to chop you know, another piece, then this is going to chop another piece, which is then going to overlap with this one. So basically this series here ultimately is going to overlap with one another to the point where everything is covered. So let's see, this is either too far, or what are we missing? Superconductors. So it looks like we have everything we need. Let's bring out the welder and see what's missing. Superconductors, probably. Because after all, it does need a whole lot of those. Superconductors. Yeah, superconductors. Izzy might be locked up here. Okay, that was... So the next question is, do I build with Kenti blocks or others? So this is somewhat of an experimental idea, which is why I really, haven't fully investigated, what do I really want to do. I thought these were 5 by 5 blocks, when in fact they're 3 by 3 blocks. So that's a little better. We are going to need power, quite a bit of power. So I think what we'll do is let's go ahead and 3. So this is Kenti large reactor here. We'll go ahead and put one of these guys down in the center. That was not how I intended that to be. Alright, so that appears to be sitting right on that piece. So this one will be there, and this one there. So that's the 3 reactors, which should be plenty enough to power all these guys. Then we need storage. Let's see what's happening. Oh, computers. We're out of computers. We're used half of our reactor parts. The grids out of large tubes and still out of superconductors. Still working. Production. So clearly this is going to take just a little while. Between building all the components that we need to actually put this other miner together, and actually figuring out how I'm going to design it, how I'm going to move it. This is completely experimental. I just want it to be able to move. Is really where I'm thinking. We're just a hair in front of an hour, so this might be a good break time. So this is Genty Tiger signing off. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.